Okay, so we're going to be learning about Tu B'Shvat. Here in Eretz Yisrael, it's already started, and those outside of Israel, you have time to prepare. So many of you attend our Tuesday class also. So we did a whole thing learning, we began to learn about the Sfirot. And we made connections between the Sfirot and trees. So I'm going to review that. For those people who heard already, a review is always good. And those who didn't hear, because there's some beautiful connections with Tu B'Shvat here. So I'm going to do it kind of condensed. In the Torah, there's a mitzvah that if you're laying siege to a city, an army, and you need wood to build a battering ram, for example, you can't cut fruit trees. And the mitzvah says, ask rhetorically, is a tree a man that you would come against him? He's not your enemy. And the commentaries actually reverse this question, a rhetorical question, and they make it into a statement. Man is like a tree of the field. So here's our first step, is a person is compared to trees. What else is compared to trees? The Torah, a specific tree. And we say it every time we put the Torah back in the ark after a public reading. Eitz chaim hi lemacha zikim ba. The Torah is a tree of life for those who grasp onto it. Then we learned that the Sfirot, the Kabbalists call the Sfirot the Eitz chaim. If you look at the Sfirot here you'll see, in a sense, the trunk. And here you see the branches coming out of the sides. In other words, the shape is like a trunk with the branches of a tree. And we also learned that a human being, we have our trunk of our body, and we have our arms. And in a sense, in our face, the ears are like a branch, the eyes are all coming from the middle. And even the two nostrils is like a tree. So here we have a human being is compared to a tree. The Torah is compared to a tree. And the Sfirot are connected to a tree. Now, the secret here is that the word for tree in Hebrew is eitz, which equals in gematria 160. 160 equals tselem, image. And we know that a human being is created in the image of God, in the image of God. So here we have a lot of connections here between, first of all, the Torah is called a tree of life, but the Torah is the manifest will of God. So we have human beings compared to trees, the Sfirot compared to trees, the Torah compared to trees, and all of it is an image, in a sense, of God. The Sfirot are the light and energy of God being channeled into this world. So this is one of the secrets that we can concentrate on Tu B'Shvat, is that it's not just that we're eating fruit, and it's not just that we're praising Eretz Yisrael, but we're making a unity between God, the Torah, the Sfirot, human beings. And a human being is not only made in the image of God, but the Baal Shem Tov teaches that the soul is a chelek elokam mima'al mamash, an actual part of God above. So on Tu B'Shvat, we're praising the trees, but we're also trying to fix something. What are we trying to fix? Eitz Hadat Tov V'Ra, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Because where did we go wrong? We ate from the tree. Now, the month of Shvat, we're told that every month has a sense. Every month has a sense to it. The sense of the month of Shvat is eating and taste. So Kabbalah and Chassidut point out, just like on Shabbos, so many of us have the experience during the week, we're eating on the run, we're not concentrating so much on what we're eating. But on Shabbos, where everything slows down and we're not racing through the meals, that we have this opportunity to really connect to the idea in Chassidut, which can't be done unless we really think about it, is the idea when we eat food, that what we're doing really is we're trying to draw out of the food the life force that will give us life force. In other words, there's a type of eating where we're hungry, so we're eating, but we're not necessarily mentally in kavana thinking as we're eating that what I'm actually doing is I'm ingesting life force, because whether we're vegetarian or we eat meat, we're eating grains and vegetables and fruit and meat and even milk products, which is coming from an animal. Well, all of these have life force. The animal world has life force, and the vegetable fruit world has life force. So we're told that on Tu B'Shvat, it's like a meditation. We're told that maybe one of the most auspicious times of the year for meditation. We know that, for example, Hanukkah, looking at the lights, is considered a very auspicious, ripe time to meditate. Now, interestingly enough, it's given all over Chassidut that one of the other times that's considered so fitting for meditation is when we're eating the matzah at the Seder. Because we're eating it, you're supposed to eat a certain amount within, some say 3 minutes, some say 9 minutes. But the idea is that no one talks. And we're concentrating, what does matzah mean? But the idea is we're ingesting it. It's not we're talking about it intellectually, theoretically. We're eating the matzah and everything that it represents. But the difference is, what are we thinking about when we're eating the matzah? So they say the same thing about Tu B'Shvat. It's a very, very special time as we taste each of the fruits, that we do it with an awareness. We ate from the Eitz Hadat Tov V'Ra. And we're told that this is an opportunity to, in a sense, fix the whole idea of eating. The whole idea of eating is taking something from the outside and bringing it into ourselves. And it becomes integrated into us. And so I think people know, let's see, for example, if you're eating like junk food, you're going to pay a price. You're going to know it. Or if you eat on the run, if you've ever, I know this happens to me, if I'm in a certain state of like kind of stress, but it's my only opportunity to eat. And I can't like calm myself down, and I eat in a sense of stress, I pay for it. I really pay for it. So every Shabbat, that's why the Rebbe's used to say, Lekavod Shabbos Kodesh, with like almost every bite that they would take. Lekavod Shabbos Kodesh. That's called eating with kavana. And we're told like one of the headquarters for the whole year is Tu B'Shvat. Is while we're eating, to actually not to in a sense denigrate the physical pleasure of the eating. Not at all. It's almost the opposite. When we take time to really concentrate on the incredible flavors and colors and variety of food, and really ingest it and make it part of us in a holy way, of course, by making a bracha before with kavana. If it's eating bread, washing our hands, making an after blessing, we put eating into the context of holiness. And like the headquarters is Tu B'Shvat. In a certain way, the whole idea of eating with kavana is connected to Tu B'Shvat. So now I want to go back to this idea of how the Torah is compared to a tree, a human being is compared to a tree, the sphirot are compared to a tree. So we have, though, like a mirror image here. First of all, I heard this from Reb Shlomo Karlbach. He said, why do trees like turn us on so much? Why does everyone love trees? He said in a very, very deep way, it reminds us of the utopian ambiance of the Garden of Eden before we had to leave. Because the utopia was, of course, it was a mental state of consciousness, but God put us in this beautiful garden. And there's a beautiful midrash, I believe it's Vayikra Rabbah, that says that God took Adam for a walk around the garden. And he said to him, do you see this beautiful garden? Make sure to guard it. Because if you don't guard it, there'll be no one after you to pick up the pieces. And that's what he actually says in the Torah, that God put him into the garden to guard it and to work it. And so this midrash is based on that. What does it mean to guard it? But this was like a prophetic midrash, especially to our world today. Especially where with all of the incredible technology and advances in every aspect of the way we live, at the same time, we've created the ability to poison all of our waters, to poison our air, and to actually poison all the plants on the planet, and ultimately to literally blow up the planet. So this midrash was very prophetic, where God is saying to Adam, if you don't guard your world, there'll be no one to pick up after you. And so really in the last approximately 30 years, Tu B'Shvat is what I like to call a holiday whose time has come. Until about 30 years ago, I'm going to say closer to 47 years, because I'll mention this. why Tu B'Shvat is very, very special, because my wife and I met on Tu B'Shvat at a Tu B'Shvat Seder. And it was one of the first Tu B'Shvat Seder. It was 47 years ago. We were introduced at a Tu B'Shvat Seder. And this was at the Diaspora Yeshiva in Har Zion. And the person who, the Seder of Tu B'Shvat, again, if you open up our Tu B'Shvat Seder that we sent you, comes from approximately 500 years ago. But except for a very, very small group of Kabbalists, it was virtually unknown. And there was a young man at the Diaspora Yeshiva. His name was Josh. I'll say Alav Shalom, because unfortunately he passed away very young. The Diaspora Yeshiva was not a Kabbalistic yeshiva, but somehow he found this Kabbalistic Seder of Tu B'Shvat, and he organized a Tu B'Shvat Seder. And this was 47 years ago. So in the last, we'll say 50 years, Tu B'Shvat has spread all over the world. Not everyone does the Tu B'Shvat Seder. Many people celebrate it in different ways. Here in Israel, this is a Shemitah year, but in a typical year, quite literally, hundreds of thousands of trees are planted on Tu B'Shvat. That is a huge thing that the Jewish National Fund organizes many months in advance and takes out school groups all over the country and plants trees. And in our day, it's also been a time to concentrate on the importance of saving our environment. There's no doubt that some of you who are a little bit older maybe remember the first Earth Day. The first Earth Day, I believe, was either 1969 or 1970. Can't remember. It was one of those 2 years where it appeared for the first time, the idea of the importance of saving our environment became like a mass movement. But you'll see in our Tu B'Shvat Seder, the importance of guarding the environment is engraved in Jewish law, not just in Midrash. I already mentioned that one of the first things is this idea that you can't cut fruit trees if you need wood for war. Now, the sages took this mitzvah. This is a typical example of how the sages take what appears to be a very narrow mitzvah. When I mean narrow, meaning that the circumstances in which this mitzvah will be fulfilled the context is very narrow. In other words, in today's world, how many armies are cutting down fruit trees to build battering rams? But what did the sages learn from this mitzvah? A concept called Bal Tashchit, which means the mitzvah not to destroy wantonly. And they expanded this mitzvah tremendously, not to waste anything that has like a purpose to, anything that can be saved or used in a different way. That's why recycling is a super Jewish idea. It's the idea that you finish the bottle or the can, instead of it going into the garbage, they started recycling. And this goes with, if you have old clothes, not to just throw it in the garbage, to make sure it goes to some organization that is recycling it and then giving it to the poor. So Tu B'Shvat really is a day to think about really what I'll call the Torah imperative of being a part of saving the environment. in little ways and big ways, not wasting water, all kinds of things, all kinds of things. There was many years in Israel that we had drought conditions here. Some of you might be from California or the West, which frequently has water shortages and bans on watering your lawn and washing your car and different things. These are real issues. The Rambam, 1,000 years ago, wrote many things about air pollution, water pollution, noise pollution, smell pollution, and these are encoded in Jewish law. So this is a very, very important part of Tu B'Shvat. So going back to the trees. So a tree in this world, the roots are under the surface, under the ground. Usually we don't see the roots. Some trees you actually see the roots at earth level. But in general, the roots are under the ground. The trunk rises up and the branches reach out. But what we're told is the soul, a human being, is compared to a tree. The Sefirot are compared to a tree. And the Torah is compared to a tree. It's a mirror image where the roots are above. The roots of the soul are actually in the higher worlds. And the, as it were, the trunk and the branches and the fruit descends into this world. We're actually told in Kabbalah and Hasidut that only a part of the root of the soul is manifest in the body. And the more pure a person is, the more of a righteous person, the more holy a person is, the more they draw down the root of their soul into the trunk and the branch in this world, in the body. The Torah is what's called a primordial Torah, a Torah Kedumah. It preceded the world. So the roots of the Torah are really in the higher worlds. And they're manifest in the lower world. Now, this is interesting because the system we have of revealing the deeper levels of the Torah is called Pardes, which means orchard. Again, trees. And so the higher levels of the Torah, we start, as it were, below, Pshat, the literal, and then Remez, the alluded to meaning, and then Drush, the allegorical, metaphorical, symbolic level of the Torah. And then the highest level is called Sod, the secret, mystical, Kabbalistic level. But in a sense, the roots of the Torah are in the Sod. And the highest level, that's where the roots are. And then it's descending into this world until it gets down to the Pshat. But it's the same thing with the Sefirot. And the same thing with what we call the four Kabbalistic worlds. Here we are in what's called the lowest of all the worlds, Olam HaAsiyah. And then there's Olam HaYetzirah, Olam HaBriyah, Olam HaTzilut. And the higher you go in the worlds, the higher you go in the Sefirot, in a sense, the closer you're getting to divinity. And this whole world is a mirror image of the upper worlds. So this is just a very beautiful idea, the idea of the tree, why a human being is compared to a tree, the Sefirot, the Torah, but in a deep sense, it's a reversed tree. It's a reverse tree, and we have the benefits of the fruits of the Torah. the fruits of the Sfirot, really the fruits of the soul, which is rooted in the upper worlds. So I want to end with one last idea, which in my mind, in a sense, is all the ideas we've been talking about are important and can bring great meaning to Tu B'Shvat. But the one that I think is really, really important from on a very, very personal level is Tu B'Shvat always comes out either right before or right after Parshat B'Shalach, what we read in Shul this week. Again, those who have one of the articles we sent out was the connection of B'Shalach and Tu B'Shvat. So very, very quickly, not every parsha has trees in it. In fact, most of the parsha of the Torah, there's no mention of trees. In B'Shalach, there's two mentions of trees in two different incidences. One is after we crossed the Reed Sea, we came to a place called Elim. And it says at Elim, there were 70 palm trees and 12 springs of water. So this is very symbolic. The 70 represents the 70 elders, the 70 members of the Sanhedrin, the 70 faces of the Torah. Our series here, the 70 faces of the Torah. And of course, Sod, the secret teachings of the Torah. And then we went for 3 days and we had no water. And they finally came to a place called Mara, and the waters were bitter. They couldn't drink them. So God revealed to Moshe a tree and said, throw the tree in the water and it will sweeten the waters. Now, what's interesting, it doesn't say take a branch of the tree. It says take the tree. So the commentaries point out, well, what tree are they talking about? So they say, one of the explanations is it's the Eitz Chaim. It's the tree of life. And the tree of life has the power to sweeten the bitterness of life, the bitterness of slavery. Remember, we're just coming out of slavery. We haven't received the Torah yet. So God is alluding to the fact that when we don't have purpose in this world, it's a bitter existence. What gives sweetness and meaning to life is to have a purpose, or many purposes. They could be small purposes, like being a good husband or a good wife or a good brother or a good sister or a good parent or a good child, being a good neighbor, being a good community member, contributing to society in one of a million ways. But we're told that without purpose, life can descend into great bitterness. And what gives us purpose? What is our foundation? It's the Torah. The Torah gives us the context in which to find purpose. Also, for those who are old enough to remember, Janis Joplin, who said, freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. That is not a Jewish formula. Freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose. That leads, unfortunately, to the way Janis Joplin died, by an overdose, because she had nothing left to lose. She lived by her creed and she died by her creed. It's not a Jewish, I have Rachmanis on her, but it's not a Jewish creed, that definition of freedom. There's another one that I like much better that fits in exactly to this parsha. It's a line from a Bob Dylan song that says, "Freedom just around the corner for you, but with truth so far off, what good would it do?" You have to think about that. In others, freedom's just around the corner. But if it's not connected to something beautiful and real and holy and meaningful, something true, what good would it do? Then you end up with Janis Joplin's definition of freedom. So I like that very much. I'll say it again. Freedom is just around the corner for you. But with truth so far off, what good would it do? A lot to think about there. Okay, so what I want to say now is that the connection between Beshalach and Tu B'Shvat, more than what we just said, these two examples of trees. And that is, according to tradition, what actually is happening today. How did this day come to be the new year of the trees? And so according to tradition, there's actually two opinions of when the sap begins to rise in the tree. Beit Shammai thought it was on the new moon of Shvat, and Beit Hillel said it was on the 15th of the month of Shvat. But both of them agree what's happening. The sap begins to run in the tree. So this is the energy that we're supposed to connect to on this day, along with everything we said, the environment in Eretz Yisrael, and especially the fruits of Eretz Yisrael and the natural world, and learning how to eat with kavana, all of these things. But here there's something very deeply personal, because what happens in Beshalach, we get out of Egypt. And there are 3 holidays in a row now. Actually, this year with a leap year, there are 4 in a row that will happen on full moons. Tu B'Shvat is the 15th of Shvat, it's a full moon. This month we have 2 Adars. So Purim Katan and Shushan Purim Katan is happening on a full moon. Purim itself happens on a full moon. It's actually the 14th, but Shushan Purim is the full moon. And then Pesach is on a full moon. So what is happening today begins the sap rising in the tree represents the energy of freedom is beginning today. And this is, remember, we're compared to a tree. So what I want to leave everyone with is this idea that right now is a time to connect to new energy, the energy of freedom, the energy of self-expression, the energy of creativity. But it's all happening below the surface. You don't see the sap rising in the tree, but you know where you see it? In the almond tree. Here in Eretz Yisrael, and actually my wife and I saw the first blossoms of the olive tree. The olive tree, the word in Hebrew, shkediyah, comes from the root which means to quicken. Because the almond tree is quick to put out its blossoms in the spring. So even though it appears very much like winter, for those people who are here in Israel, we're just finishing a incredible 3-day rain that was here. It was like, whoa, it was torrents of rain and cold. And yet below the surface, the sap is beginning to rise. And you see it in the almond tree. And in certain years, whole almond trees will be in blossom. Many years, Tu B'Shvat doesn't happen until the end of January or the beginning of February. This year, it's very, very early in the Gregorian calendar. So this is what I'd like to leave everyone with. That is the energy of today. The road to freedom is starting today. The road to redemption, the energy that will lead to Purim and then leads to Pesach, really climaxes in Pesach, but not really. It climaxes when we receive the Torah on Shavuos. And that's this week's Parsha. So here, when we go from Bashalach to Yitro, in a sense, we're spanning like 3 to 4 months. We're going from Tu B'Shvat to Shavuos. So I want to end by blessing everyone to really, really connect to this energy, to look deep inside and try to like dig it out, try to contemplate it into reality, taking our potential and doing a whole meditation of let the sap start to run. Let the creative juices, the potential juices start to run today. And so everyone should have a joyous Tu B'Shvat, full of praise of God, praise of the beautiful world that God made, praise of Eretz Yisrael, especially Eretz Yisrael. And we should all merit to bring our potential to fruition.